Call the meeting to order. Supervisor Hess, would you lead us in invocation, please, sir?
Please bow your heads. Almighty God, we open this meeting by giving thanks to you for your many blessings. We know that you are the source of all life and the creator of all things. And on this rainy September evening, we're reminded of the majesty of your creation. And thank you for the opportunity to live here in beautiful Frederick County. And Father, earlier this month, our community and our nation paused to remember those of our fellow citizens who died in the horrific events that occurred 15 years ago on September 11th, 2001. We are especially thankful for the courage and dedication you placed in the hearts of the first responders on that fateful day. And it reminds us, Father, of how you have blessed us here in the county through our public safety employees who face each day not knowing the dangers that they may face protecting us. We thank you for each and every one of them, each and every one of our deputies and fire and rescue employees. Heavenly Father, we're reminded of and offer our special thanks to those throughout the history of this great nation who have given their lives to preserve the freedoms we enjoy, including the right to assemble here tonight. We ask your blessing upon those gathered here this evening. Guide us all and give us the strength and desire to continue to serve you, our county, our commonwealth, and our great nation. And we ask that our words and our actions this evening might be pleasing in your sight. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Chairman Fisher, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Please stand and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Of the agenda, are there any additions or corrections?
We have no additions, Mr. Chairman.
Motions?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda is presented. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. We'll adopt the agenda. The consent agenda, tentative items are tabs A and I. Are there any changes proposed there?
No, sir.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Adopt the consent agenda as presented, tabs A and I. Citizen comments, this is the portion of the meeting where we invite citizens to comment on any issue that are on the agenda but are not subject to public hearings. Does anyone have anything at all they'd like to share?
We had no one sign up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Brings us to committee appointments. Machine catches up, we'll move on. Northwestern Community Services Board, assuming we're still waiting for a recommendation.
We have a possible candidate, Mr. Chairman. We forwarded that information to the director of the Community Service Board, and we're waiting to hear back from them.
Okay, very good. Historic Resources Advisory Board, thought I had someone who might be interested, haven't heard back from them. So for all those folks with us and watching in, we are looking for someone who would be interested in serving on the Historic Resources Advisory Board. So if you could please get in touch with us and we'll continue the search. Shawnee Land District Advisory Committee.
Yes, sir. I've not met or made a decision on that yet.
Thank you, sir. Conservation Easement Authority.
Mr. Chairman, I did speak with Mr. Marker, and he is willing to serve, and I would, or continue to serve, and I would so move.
Second.
Motion and a second to reappoint John Marker. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. John R. Marker is reappointed. Parks and Recs, Shawnee.
Mr. Chairman, you have an application there for Mr. Gus Morrison for appointment to Parks and Recreation Commission, and I would so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Mr. Morrison is appointed. Shawnee Land Sanitary District Committee again.
No, sir. No.
Thank you. Brings us to the end of the list. Next is the Commissioner Revenue request for refunds. Mr. Tibbs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request from the Commissioner of Revenue to authorize the treasurer to refund Plaza Pet Clinic in the amount of $3,909.61 for business license taxes for the first half of 2016. This refund results from the closing of this business and reopening under new ownership and reflects proration of gross receipts for the period unused. The new business will be responsible for taxes incurred subsequent to the closing of the old business. Staff is seeking approval of the refund request and a supplemental appropriation, Mr. Chairman.
How would the board like to handle this one?
Move for approval of the refund with the supplemental appropriation.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
And the second refund request, Mr. Chairman, is a request from the Commissioner to authorize the treasurer to refund Lake Holiday Country Club Incorporated the amount of $5,925 for real estate taxes and sanitary district fees in 2016. This refund results from lots absorbed by the Homeowners Association, not identified in any other exoneration request. Staff is seeking approval of the refund request and a supplemental appropriation.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the refund in the amount of $5,925 for Lake Holiday Country Club, Inc., and a corresponding supplemental appropriation.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. That will bring us to the Finance Committee report. Supervisor Slaughter?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met on September 21st at 8 a.m., and the items for discussion, first of all, we approved under consent agenda, and I would like to make a motion to approve items number 6, 8, 9, and 10.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? All right, Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. Items 6, 8, 9, and 10 are approved under consent. Supervisor Slaughter?
Okay, the second item was the Frederick County Public School Assistant Director request a school operating fund and general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $211,634.10. This amount represents funds received during fiscal year 16 for designated projects. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
A motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 3, the Frederick County Public Schools Assistant Director of Finance requests school operating fund and general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $458,984.80. This amount represents unspent fiscal year 16 funds to be spent on high-priority items in the transportation and the facility service departments. Those items were 2 additional buses and a chiller tower at the Sharando High School for information. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 6 on the agenda, the Deputy Public Works Director requests a landfill supplemental appropriation in the amount of $200,000. This amount represents a carry forward of unspent fiscal year 16 funds for an ongoing project, the partial closure of Area 1, Phase 1, CDD landfill. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
That Takes us to item number 10. The Deputy County Administrator requests a general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $31,202.77. This amount represents a carry forward of unspent fiscal year funds for carpet replacement, which was started in fiscal year 16 but had various delays. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
Motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries.
That takes us to item number 11. The Economic Development Authority Executive Director requested an EDA fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $100,000. This amount represents the third installment under the performance agreement with Carmeuse Lime and Stone. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
The motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there any discussion? Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 12, the EDA Executive Director requests an EDA fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $100,000. This amount represents the final installment under the performance agreement with HP Hood. The committee recommends approval, and I would so move.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And second, is there any discussion?
Just a quick comment,
Yes, sir,
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Dunn.
On these economic incentives, I do have some problems with them. I'll support this because it's been done before. Going forward, it's unknown, but I'll approve this one only because it's a commitment earlier.
Further discussion, anyone? Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
And the last item on the agenda was the Finance/Audit Committee Charter adopted by the Board of Supervisors requires an annual review and assessment. The committee recommended no changes to the charter, and I would so move.
Motion, is there a second? And a second, is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. This Planning Commission business, a public hearing, conditional use permit 09-16 for Connie Ann Moss for a dog kennel. Mr. Chairman, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a conditional use permit, as you pointed out, for a dog kennel for property located at 4527 Valley Pike is in the Back Creek Magisterial District. The property is currently zoned RA rural areas, and its land use is residential. If I could turn your attention to the map on your left, kind of give you a blow-up of the property. It's in laid out in black. It's across the street from Appleland. I think everybody's familiar with that part of Route 11. The property surrounding this proposed conditional use permit are zoned RA rural areas, and their land use is vacant, retail, and outdoor recreation, respectively. Kennels, Mr. Chairman, as you're well aware of, and as this board is, are the permitted use in the rural area zoning district with an approved conditional use permit. This proposed use will take place on a 4.09 acre parcel that is surrounded by, again, RA zone property. And just for the record, we know what the definition of a kennel is: a place prepared to house, board, breed, hand, or otherwise keep for care a dog for sale in return for compensation. This proposed dog kennel will have 5 kennels for boarding of dogs, with 2 dogs per kennel for a total of 10. I am going to let the applicant explain a little more in depth, as she did at the Planning Commission, so we understand there'll be 10 dogs at any given time being boarded. She has a business plan for that can explain it a lot better than I can, because when we usually see it, as you're well aware of, on kennels, usually more dogs there than 10. So just so we have an understanding there. One of the requirements or performance standards we usually put on our kennels, you're all well aware of that, we have dogs must be confined indoors, with the exception when they are walked or exercised, and will not be let outdoors prior to 8 a.m. We always have the dogs confined indoors by 9 p.m., and there will be no breeding of dogs with this use. Again, it is surrounded by RA zone properties. This is one of the requirements we do put on it. It's one of our performance standards. The dogs will be allowed outside and supervised on a leash after 9 p.m. as needed. That was kind of a change. The applicant had asked the Planning Commission, and as you see, I think in your agenda package, we amended the conditions of the conditional use for that. The applicant brought a pretty good point out that the dogs are being kept inside. They may need to go outside, exercise, and do some other things. So that's why it was amended, and you'll see that in your agenda. Furthermore, which is interesting about this conditional use permit, this is probably the first one I've seen in Frederick County, that this property will also be used for an indoor-outdoor public dog training. The indoor training is conducted in a building that's already constructed out there, and it's also going to have an outdoor area for agility tests and just plain training. And I don't know if any of the board members have been down there. The applicant has put a fence around almost a good 2 acres of property here and has it, and she can explain it a little better than I can, but being down there, she walked me through it. So it's kind of a unique, different thing that we've had here in Frederick County. And finally, all the training sessions will be conducted via appointment only with no more than 6 customers with their dogs. This was the applicant feels that that's what she can handle at any given time, and that was her part of her business plan. This is just a layout that they kind of drew, showing where the kennels and the training area and the house is. They do live on the property. The property, again, is surrounded by RA properties. It's screened, as you can see by the aerials, pretty well. And the Planning Commission, let me take that back. Should the Board of Supervisors find this to be appropriate, the Planning Commission recommend the following conditions be assigned to the conditional use permit. Number 1, all review agency comments should be complied with at all times. Number 2, this CUP is solely to enable the boarding and training of dogs on the property, so no breeding. No more than 3 employees with this conditional use permit. All dogs must be confined indoors by 9 p.m. Dogs will be allowed outside and supervised on a leash after 9 p.m. as needed, and that was one of the conditions that was amended. Number 5, any proposed business sign should conform to cottage occupation sign requirements and should not exceed 4 square feet in size and not 5 feet in height. Number 6, the hours of operation shall be from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday. And any expansion or modification, you should require an approval of a new conditional use permit. The applicant was happy with the conditions assigned to this. The applicant, Ms. Connie Ann Moss, is here to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, you or board members may have on this conditional use permit for a kennel. And I'll answer any questions that you may have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Chair? Anyone?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the facility is up. I'm correct?
That is correct.
Are we putting the cart in the wrong position here with the horse? And the facility's up, now we're coming for a conditional use permit?
That is correct. Now, I'm going to let the
I just
applicant
asked
answer.
you.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it's in proper order.
It is in proper order in the sense that anybody can, and let me take that, anyone can pull a building permit to put the building up that she has and the fencing. Problem is to get the business license to get started in Frederick County for this, in this zoning district, you need a conditional use permit. So it's not, they're not operating out there now, Mr. Wells.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They made the investment.
they made the investment. Now that's up to, yeah, they took the chance.
All right.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Ms. Moss, anything you'd like to add?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Thank you for hearing me this evening. I would like to discuss a little bit about the business plan that I have. My intention is to offer professional dog training and dog boarding at this location. I am a certified professional dog trainer, and I would like to, in my experience of working with dogs, offer a low-stress boarding kennel for these dogs. So we offer a number of different services that are not typically available at any kennel in this area. We offer turnout in a 2-acre field that is very nicely fenced with an 8-foot fence. It's a wire fence as well as deer fencing, so it can take the impact of an animal should it run into the fence. But it's also 8 feet tall, so nobody can get out. And we're against Route 11, so I didn't want to take any risk with anybody's dogs that they might be able to jump the fence. They're always supervised when we're out in that 2-acre field. And we do allow dogs in a kennel, but only if they're from the same household. So I won't be housing people's dogs with other people's dogs, if that makes sense. So one dog or one kennel will have 2 dogs in it. They will be from the same household. And that's how there is the possibility that we may reach 10 dogs with the 5 kennels. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Pretty much any questions you have for me, that's what we have in mind, professional training facility as well as boarding, low-stress boarding for dogs.
Questions for Ms. Moss, anyone?
I did have a question. Number one, I think a fence really looks great. When I first rode by there, and it's been some time ago, I saw some equipment there in the yard, and I thought, somebody really doesn't want their kids to get out of the yard, but now I understand it's not for kids. But, and this may have come up, it appears that that's a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit through there. You've got a commercial building on one side of you and across the street from you. Is your sign adequate? Really, are you looking to attract people? The sign seems fairly small. If you're just,
Yes.
I didn't know if you were trying to attract customers who might be driving by, or whether you had some purpose. It just seemed like that was a small sign to have.
Actually, yes. I didn't realize when I was reading the CUP, I read it, I actually misunderstood it when it said 4x5. I was thinking that meant the sign size 4x5. But as I now understand it, it was brought to my attention that's actually 5 feet in height from the ground. And it's a 4-square-foot sign. So now that I realize that I misunderstood that, I'm wondering if it is possible for your consideration to allow me a larger sign for that very reason, as they are driving 55 miles an hour, and I'm hoping to attract their attention with a slightly larger sign. Yes, that would be appreciated if it's still an ability for me to be able to do that.
What size sign would you think you would like to have?
I would like to have maybe a 24-square-foot sign, so I'm guessing that's what, about 4 by 6? Correct. Not
4 foot
lighted.
in height, 6 foot wide, or 6
The actual sign itself, 4 foot wide, 4 foot high, 6 feet wide, the actual sign itself. And I guess that would still be only 5 feet off the ground. And I'm fine with that, if that's okay with the board, because there is a ditch. It will be kind of in a ditch, and the road itself does sit up several feet where the sign will be put.
If I may ask a question, Mr. Chairman, is she correct about the height,
Yes.
the distance?
Yeah, that would work. It'll be a monument-type sign, whatever square footage that you accommodate, we can make it work.
Okay,
Yeah, so it shouldn't be an issue at all.
thank you.
Just a question for Mr. Sharon. The VDOT entrance, I mean, I know it's light traffic, so it probably doesn't make any difference. I just want to be sure we're in compliance there.
We're in compliance there.
Other questions, Ms. Moss? Yes, sir.
One question. I was at the Planning Commission when this was previously addressed, and there were some people there that made some comments on the type of service that you were offering. Would you care to elaborate on that? I understand that you're providing a service that is not available in this community.
That is correct. We are offering low-stress boarding, so our boarding kennels, only 5 kennels in a building, which lowers the amount of noise in the building. Also, the kennels are drywalled. There is no chain link, so the dogs cannot see each other. They're not excited by the presence of each other because they cannot see each other. We use aromatherapy. We use calm music. The dogs are let out 3 times a day for 20 minutes at a time, supervised, of course, in a 2-acre field, so they can work off some extra energy, which will hopefully tire them out, and they'll be a little bit more calm and quiet in their kennels. The kennels also have little outside kennels attached to them, or a little patio, if you will, that is also solid fencing so they can't see each other, but it allows them fresh air. The kennels are cleaned by myself and my husband. We use 2 disinfectants that are known to kill parvovirus, which is one of the worst viruses out there for dogs. We intend on keeping it very clean train, and keeping the dogs exercised and not excited by the presence of each other.
Thank you.
Any questions, anyone?
Sounds like quite a unique situation. If I wanted to rent a kennel and stay there overnight, would you?
Absolutely. You're first on my list.
I'm not sure you're trainable, Bob.
Other questions, Ms. Moss? Anyone? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Chair? Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to comment concerning this proposed conditional use permit? Yes, ma'am. If you'd come forward, share your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
My name is Kat Eaton. I'm a resident of the city of Winchester and a customer of Frederick County businesses. My address is 304 Parkway Street, Winchester 22601. And Mr. Chair, if I may approach, I have some handouts.
Sure. You could just start them at the end. We can take care of the passing for you.
So, handout is to share with you, I'm one of those dog families that considers their, what otherwise are known canines, to be their fur family. We are very particular with where our boys stay. Those are photos of our boys. You can see that they are not in a cement cylindered block kennel. One of them has a twin-size bed. It's the large one that's lounging on the couch. Rarely do we take vacations these days, at least together, because one, two of them are getting to be older dogs, but two, it's very stressful for us to leave our dogs and then put them in an environment that they are not accustomed to at all. As relatively new residents to the area, been here about 2.5 years, we are in desperate need of a facility and a resource, such as the one that Connie and Lance are looking to open. And with your support, that will be a great resource for your dog families who truly consider their dogs part of the family. To give you an example, our dogs probably have better health insurance than I do, but that's all intentional. They're great companions. But I just wanted to throw a statistic your way that I did a little bit of research before I made these comments, that I found that in Frederick County alone, there's 4,583 licensed dogs. And that doesn't attribute to the unlicensed dogs. With Winchester's dog population added to that number, there's over 6,700 licensed dogs in our area. Obviously, Connie and Lance only have 5 kennels. I get it. I'll be reserving well in advance, so Supervisor Hess, you may not have a space available. So I'm here to say that it is truly in demand, and you would be doing the region a great service to support this effort. And I would lastly add that all of our boys are trained by Connie Moss, and she has terrific certifications, and we couldn't be happier. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to comment? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Joyce Beck. I'm from the Gainsborough District, and I don't have the stats. The only thing I can tell you is I've known Connie for 2 years. I've trained with her for 2 years. There is no facility in this area that I will leave my dogs. I have border collies. I'm presently driving to Strasburg to board the dogs, and her facility would be a great, it would, I'm trying to think of the word, it would be a great advantage to Frederick County. If you let Connie have the facility, she's a fantastic trainer. And that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Anyone at all? And we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. Ms. Back Creek?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you. First, let me say that I think the Mosses have done an excellent job of the presentation. And also, I tell you, if the dog business goes south, you can always get a job putting up fencing. I swear, that is a great job of fencing out there. But with that being said, I would move for approval of the conditional use permit number 09-6 with a modification of comment number 5 to allow for the sign not to exceed 24 square feet.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have to say, when I drove by one time and I saw the fence, I thought, I've got to stop and see what's going on here, because the facilities, I've met Ms. Moss, and the facilities are well constructed. I certainly hope we will pass this tonight. I think I have a challenging candidate for you.
Or Jacob? Further discussion, anyone? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and CUP 09-16 is approved with one modified requirement, 4x6 for a 24-square-foot sign at 5 feet. Thank you very much. Brings us to rezoning number 09-16, Commonwealth Business Center. Ms. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is an application to rezone a total of 1.21 acres from the B3, which is the Industrial Transition District, to the B2, Business General District, with proffers to accommodate commercial uses. Now, this property is located on the north side of Commonwealth Court, about 500 feet east of the intersection of Valley Pike and Route 11. If I can direct you to the screen to your left, the subject property is outlined in black. And the red shading that you see is the current B3 area of that park, and then you do see some orange areas at the top and bottom, which are existing B2. Now, the Eastern Frederick County Long Range Land Use Plan identifies this area with a business commercial land use designation. So therefore, the B2 that is being requested by the applicant is consistent with the goals of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan. And the property is also located within the sewer water service area. Now, with this rezoning, the applicant has proffered a few restrictions. Some of those are prohibitions on general merchandise stores and daycare facilities, and they have also proffered a contribution of $500 to fire and rescue. The Planning Commission held a public hearing for this at their September 7th meeting, and at that meeting, they did recommend approval. So tonight, following the public hearing, staff is seeking a decision from the board on this requested rezoning. I would be glad to answer any questions, and Mr. Evan White with Greenway Engineering is here on behalf of the application. Thank you.
Questions, Ms. Perkins, anyone? Yes, sir.
I have a question. The proffers being offered with this rezoning request, if this particular use should go away, do those proffers still stand?
Yes. They're
Okay,
tied,
so
to,
they run
they're tied
with,
to the land.
They run with the land in
Yes.
perpetuity or until some other action takes place? Okay, thank you.
Other questions, anyone?
Yes, the prohibition against daycare facilities, was that something offered or something that we had asked?
When the applicant had the preliminary discussions with staff, one of the concerns was peak hour trips, and that's a use that's not currently allowed in the B3. So through those discussions, it was felt that two of the uses, which aren't currently allowed in the B3, should be proffered out just to preclude any impacts with the transportation. So that's where the prohibition on the daycare and the retail came from.
Okay, I don't have a problem with the others. I'm just not sure that prohibiting daycare is necessary.
Other questions, anyone? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wyatt, sir?
Thank you, Chairman DeHaven, members of the board. I'm Evan White of Greenway Engineering. When Mosaic Bible came to us with the concept of potentially purchasing the property, one of the things we did talk about was the use for their facility. Currently, they meet at the Youth Development Center only on Sundays, and they are a church that does not have a daycare component, nor do they have a school component. So one of the things we wanted to make sure before we proceeded with the rezoning was the building appropriate for an adaptive reuse, because there would be a change of use permit required for this. So John Trineri and his people were kind enough to meet with us. We toured the building, we talked about some things, and as a result of that, they determined it was feasible to proceed with the acquisition of the property. So with that, that moved us into a rezoning mode. And as Candace was saying, one of the things we did when we talked to staff about going from the B3 to the B2 was what were the potential concerns from a staff perspective. And of course, as Candace said, it was the AM and PM peak hour potential impacts for going to a B2. So what we did was we did a comparative analysis. We looked at land uses that were permissible in both zoning districts, and then we looked at the ones that were potentially only allowed in B2. And as a result of that, the two items, the general merchandise and the daycare, were the ones that staff did have the potential concern with. We were certainly fine because the applicant does not intend to do daycare, and the feeling was in the future, if the facility would transition into another use and the buyer would want to use it for daycare, then the onus would be on them to come back before the board, prove that it was an okay situation, make sure staff was okay, and then amend the proffers accordingly. So we're perfectly fine with the proffers as written. The only other thing I would comment on, you probably noticed there was a proffer about a concept plan. There's currently about 20 parking spaces in the front of the building. They're probably going to need a little less, but about twice as much of the parking. If you've been to the site, you know in the rear of the facility there's adequate depth of pavement, but the conceptual plan will allow us to do a layout for staff to review and make sure we're all on solid ground there. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Mr. Wyatt? Yes, sir, Mr. Law.
Mr. Wyatt, one other question I had about the proffers was that the general merchandise stores have been proffered out. What was the reasoning behind that? Was it traffic? Because you've got general merchandising right next door. You've got a car lot, I believe. Just up the road, you've got Gander Mountain. Why was that taken out?
Once again, the real idea was that the facility that is there right now, if it did, the hope is that Mosaic stays there for the foreseeable future. But if it did need to transition into something else, if you're familiar with the building, it's not really conducive to a general merchandise type facility. It would really take some interior renovation. It's more conducive to office, that sort of land use. So once again, it was something we were comfortable with. We don't think that they're going to be going anywhere soon, but if they did, that's probably not somebody that would be approaching them to purchase the property.
I asked the question because I'm a little, I guess you're kind of inhibiting someone who might buy the property in the future. Like you said, they'd have to come back in and ask for rezoning to put that particular use back in there. Is that something, if I may ask Mrs. Perkins, is that something staff was requesting, or is it something that the applicant?
Go ahead.
There was preliminary discussions both with myself and Mr. Bishop, and Mr. Bishop had handled the transportation portion of that. And I believe it was just some discussions in comparing uses and throwing out, certain things that aren't allowed that might have higher trip generations. I mean, I would note that obviously there's a lot of higher generating uses that are allowed in the B2 that are also allowed in the B3, such as restaurants. So, staff doesn't really have a concern if you were to strike the uses altogether, if that was your comfort level to add them back in. It wouldn't be a detriment to the rezoning.
And that additional development came in, and I don't know if you were here then, but I'm wondering, because it's a nice roadway, you've got a signalized intersection, Route 11, was that land developed with the trip generation in mind of a higher intensity use?
That development actually was never rezoned. It's historical zoning, so it was actually only developed under a master plan back in the late 90s. So there's Currently, the only properties that have proffers on them have come after the fact, such as the Sportsplex and the Gander Mountain, which came in and changed the zoning around. So everything else in there was all done under a master plan and site plans.
Okay, thank you. Finished.
Other questions, Mr. Wyatt? Anyone? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this rezoning 0916? Anyone at all? Anyone? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing portion of the discussion. It's Back Creek.
Mr. Chairman, given that the potential owners want to proffer out those particular businesses, I see no reason not to, and I would recommend approval of rezoning application number 909-16 for the Commonwealth Business Center Lot 5.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any discussion? Anyone? Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries. Rezoning 09-16 is approved. That brings us to discussions of the 2016 Comprehensive Policy Plan Amendment applications. Ms. Perkins, thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a carryover from the August work session where we originally discussed the 4 submitted comprehensive plan amendments. At that work session, it was deferred to this board meeting for the actual decisions on these work sessions. We also, in your agenda, there's the Sanitation Authority comment as well as comments from Mr. Bishop on the transportation for each of those areas as requested at the work session. So as I said, we have the 4 CPPAs. If the board would like, I can go through each of those individually again. It's the same material presented at the work session. Really, the comments that we received during that meeting were support for one of the properties, which is the Leonard property, but then some of the other comments did not support sending the others forward. So tonight, we're really seeking formal consensus of which CPPAs to send forward to the Comprehensive Plans and Programs Committee for further study and which ones will not be sent forward. So with that, I can answer questions or I can go through each of the applications if you would like.
Now, let's see. Do we feel like we need to go back through the applications in detail again?
I don't think so.
All
Not
right,
for
so
me.
are there questions for Ms. Perkins on the Leonard property?
Yep.
Questions?
Ms. Perkins?
Sir.
On the Leonard property, I read through this, there's only industrial, there's no residential, is that correct?
Correct. This is the Leonard property. As you can see on the map, to your, the back is the blue, it's the industrial, the front is a mixed commercial. There's no residential on that piece.
So it'd be commercial, taxes would come from business, there's no housing, people that work there are going to come either from this community or someplace else, but that's not a factor.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Anyone? Shawnee?
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend that this go forward for further study, see PPA 01-16 Leonard property.
Motion to send it forward for additional study.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, ma'am. Russell Smith Properties, item B.
Mr. Chairman,
Let's
You wanna-
go
okay.
questions first.
Okay.
Questions, anyone?
Yep.
Questions?
Again, question. This is a residential preferred property. You're going to have housing in there. You're going to have traffic that's associated with that. And under current law, the impact of that is within approximately half mile to a mile. Is that correct? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm trying to get a feel that any impact statement is going to be within a small radius of where this is developed.
Well, the impact would be on the affected facilities such as transportation, schools, within the general area of where this would be serviced from. So actual impacts wouldn't be identified until a detailed impact analysis was done during the rezoning stage.
The general area would be within a mile, give or take?
Give or take, probably.
Okay.
Mr. Ruddy wants to comment, so let's leave him an
I'm
opportunity.
looking to Mr. Ruddy.
Thank you very much. Of course, for further study would give us the ability to look at some of those items and then subsequently a rezoning application that addresses all of the impacts would clearly show those. Historically, a rational nexus, there has to be some connection between the project and the impacts in the general area. Some are more direct and others are a little farther afield, in particular transportation. So it's difficult to say, but it should be relatively related to the actual location and impacts of that project.
Right, within that area, but it might be a little further out than just a mile radius.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions, comments, anyone? Shawnee?
Mr. Chairman, there's a caveat that I'm going to make with this CPPA 0216. I think it should go forward for further study. It's got some major infrastructure issues I think we need to look at, but I would not support any approval of this or any rezoning of this until we get some clear understanding of what Senate Bill 549 has for an impact to us. But I think we could go ahead and study this. But I just want to be clear up front that until this bill's, clarified, refined, whatever it is, I couldn't support approving any of this expansion of the sewer and water service area, or the UDA, or any rezonings. But I think we need to go ahead and get it out there. And it's got some important infrastructure issues with it that I think need to be looked at.
So your motion is?
Motion is to move this forward for further study with the caveat, as I mentioned.
Move forward for study with the caveats. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm not comfortable with this. I understand where Mr. Fisher's going. Until the state legislation issues are addressed, I'm not going to be able to support this.
I'd have to agree. Further discussion? Anyone? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Nay.
Nay. 4-2, we send it forward for study. Brings us to item C.
CPPA 316, this is the Woods Mill property in the Stonewall District. This is currently split by 37, has DSA towards the lower portion, existing RA on the top portion. They're seeking a low-density residential, so it will be a UDA and a SWAZA expansion.
Questions, Ms. Perkins? Anyone? Stonewall.
I think we have a lot of issues going back to the legislative bill that we haven't resolved yet, and this is a housing project. I do know that in our meeting, though, with planning, they had said several people had indicated interest in going through a study, and I'm not sure that a study would hurt for us to take a look at it, but I'm real concerned about this legislative Senate Bill 549.
Yes, sir.
Chair, can I ask a question of staff? When we talk about further study, what would that encompass, and what would that tell us as a result of that?
With this one, the Comprehensive Plans and Programs Committee recommended to study the broader area for this one instead of just site-specific for this property, just because you have a lot of issues with other properties, access to water and sewer, land use changes. So it would be a much larger study area would be necessary for this property as recommended by the CPPC.
So they'd be coming back, you'd be identifying
You'd be coming back with a Northeast land use plan
issues there might
change.
be with this property if in fact it were to change or it would become part of the UDA or SWAZA. Is that correct?
It would be identifying land uses that could be appropriate to send forward. However, detailed studies typically don't come till the rezoning stage that show things like actual water and sewer accessibility.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I ask that question is because I'm not sure that we would want to withhold a study on this area based upon what we don't know with the bill regarding properties, and I do agree with that, but I'm not sure that that, to me, would say that we prohibit further study to identify those things that, as Mrs. Perkins has said, that are out there. It doesn't bind us to anything that I know of, and I don't know how that impacts House bill, because as you said, it'd be, before anything could happen, it'd have to be rezoned, and that way we would know the impacts, and maybe that would help us in meshing that with House Bill 529. So I tend to...
Right. The bigger question here is, you know, what do you think of this area? Do you want to open this area up to residential development? Do you want to see a land use plan for this area that could potentially bring in additional development? That's kind of the big overall question, and then we would develop the plan based on that if it were to go forward.
So it certainly doesn't bind us to any particular action.
No, I mean,
regardless of what House Bill 529 says.
Right, and honestly, we could go through the process and develop the land use plan. It could come back and not get adopted. It's up to the discretion of the board.
All right.
Or
Thank
it
you.
could get adopted and a rezoning come much, much later.
Right.
Different factors.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if the board voted no on this, it could come back again in a year or 2 or 3. There's no inhibition on it coming back at a future date. Is that
Correct.
correct? So, all right, thank you.
It's an annual opportunity
All right.
for any landowner. Questions? Supervisor Slaughter.
Then I guess I would make a motion that we look at further study to see where we are with it. As much as I'm concerned about Senate Bill 549, I think we owe it to our citizens, if they are coming forward with a project, that we give some thought and study to the impacts.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion to send it forward for further study. Is there a second?
I would second that, Mr.
And
Chairman.
a second? Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
as in the previous one, I'm not going to be able to support this. I'd like to see the transportation issues resolved first by the state. I would say to the landowners, they can come back next year and make the case. This comes down, traffic comes down on Route 7. That's gotten much more heavy. I think the transportation issues have to be resolved before we go forward with further studies. I'm delaying it for years, so I'm not going to be able to support this.
Supervisor Fisher?
My comments are basically the same as I had with the previous. I think the study's not hurting anything, but I could not support the adoption of this amendment to the comp plan until this House bill, at least that House bill's taken care of. That doesn't mean it gets automatic approval from me, but until that happens, okay to study it, but I couldn't support approval for the comp plan amendment itself.
Anyone else? You ready to vote? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Nay?
No?
Two.
No. Chair votes no, but it goes forward for further study.
Okay,
ma'am.
our final CPPA is the Fruto Orchard Rest Church properties. Let's see, this is a request to expand the sewer water service area for 304 acres. Currently of this area, 108 acres of their property is currently within the SWAZA. There's an existing land use plan that covers it. However, the sewer water service area does not extend to cover all of the properties. So this is north part of Frederick County, the Northeast Land Use Plan.
Questions, Ms. Perkins?
The infrastructure.
Yes, sir.
The infrastructure's not there now, is that correct?
Correct.
And so if it were to be developed, that infrastructure would have to be borne by the developer, but we don't know whether that will be full cost and what the impact is outside of a mile or 2 radius. Is that correct? Thank you.
Other questions? Anyone? Stonewall.
think all of these are very difficult because we don't have the infrastructure in place to handle the rezonings. However, I think that we need to look at to give the applicant the ability to have had a study done on it too.
And, Mr. Chairman, that's how I feel on all of these. We're moving it ahead with the idea that it certainly hasn't gotten full approval, but it is a study period. And that's all it is a study period. And if the folks who want to take their time to do that, that's fine with me.
Yes, sir?
Is that a motion?
It was a motion, I believe, intended to be a motion. Yes, sir?
Is your second?
Second.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry.
Now we're in discussion.
Should have
Okay.
done that first.
I thought this
I
was.
thought that's what you wanted to do.
I figured that's what he wanted.
I'm sorry.
It's
No,
okay.
that's
It
quite all
didn't
right.
come out right.
No
That's
harm,
fine,
no
that's
foul.
fine. I understood what you meant.
So, discussion. Supervisor Lofton.
I go back to, and I echo the comments you made here so far. This is a request to expand. This gives us the opportunity with further study to find out if in fact it is feasible and give us some knowledge as to what's out there and what's not out there and what the issues might be, issues might not be. So I don't know how further study would be impediment to us in the future. It doesn't bind us to anything. It merely gives us more detail about this request. If we were to do this, this is the issues you're going to run into, and this is what you would have to deal with. So I'm fully supportive of further study on all these.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir?
I understand the other, Mr. Lofton's comments, Mr. Wells' comments. Again, I'm just voting no on this simply because I think the transportation issues need to be addressed first. I know there's a study issue, but there's an impetus when that study comes, and then you're pushed forward, and I'd rather try to address the transportation issues first, and then we can address, the study issues. So if this came back in a year, you can tell the applicant that, if some of these other transportation issues are addressed, I might change my mind, but right now I'd like to have this issue addressed first on the impact in the greater Winchester area before we open up a potential new set of development.
Further discussion, anyone? We ready to vote? So the recommendation is to send it forward for further study. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Nay.
I'm sorry.
Nay.
No, no. Chair votes no. These were all yeas. Goes forward for further study. Thank you. So that brings us to Development Impact Model discussion. Mr. Ruddy, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As we have alluded to during the discussion of the last item, Senate Bill 549, which addresses new profit legislation, if you will, came into effect on July 1st of this year. That was codified in the Virginia Code 2303.4. So there are a variety of issues revolving around this Senate bill, the new legislation. Of course, they deal directly with residential rezonings and rezonings that contain a mix of commercial and residential land uses. But again, residential is the key. Historically, the county has used a development impact model. Most recently, the one that we have now was put together in 2005 and has served the county well, if you will, for evaluating the impacts of development on the county's infrastructure. Clearly, as we've gotten to find out more about the mechanics of the legislation, the current development impact model would no longer serve the purpose it was intended for initially, as it evaluates the development impacts more county-wide. The new legislation deals with proffers associated with the rezoning requests and then seeks to ensure that those proffers are reasonable. It goes a little further and says that those proffers, those impacts to address the development, are specifically attributable to that project, which is, if you will, more definition than our model certainly provides, and perhaps more definition, more close proximity to particular requests than rezoning requests may have been evaluated on in the past. Suffice to say, there are a fair amount of issues associated with 549. But first and foremost, the county's development impact model does not put us in a kind of a good position when it comes to rezoning applications that seek to address their impacts by looking at our development impact model. So the action that we've identified is to suspend the use of the development impact model in the short term for evaluating rezoning applications that contain residential uses. It's the goal to continue to work with development applications as they come on in and people who are looking to do such activities to try and come up with a good way to identify what are those specifically attributable impacts for residential rezoning. But in the short term, the model as it's crafted today would not get us there. As a staff, we've been in contact with the owners of the model, if you will, the folks that developed it for us. And they, along with others, I'm sure will be able to modify as time goes by, provide new resources to help communities get to what that point is. Our model could be modified at some point in the future, and we'd look to see if that's an option. But also, we would want to be careful about not being the community, if you will, that created a whole new tool to evaluate residential rezoning requests, and then have that be challenged again at some point in the very near future. So I think, as we said at the Planning Commission Board of Supervisors work session, there are a variety of issues. We'll continue to tread carefully as we move forward, but Mr. Williams and I identified this as a first step that we should take as we continue to work with the development community in evaluating rezonings that come in front of the county. So that's the request that we have in front of the board this evening, and that's to hold off on the use of the development impact model. Of course, in your agenda, I included the development impact model as it is in place today, currently in effect, and that's what we're talking about, not using that from this point forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Questions for Mr. Ruddy, anyone? Yes, sir, Mr. Fisher.
If we would get a rezoning, residential rezoning, and we don't have this, can't use this tool that we've been using, it appears to me the county is just exposed to, got to take whatever gets put to you, and you really have no recourse because of the undefined reasonableness, that term reasonable, proper thing of this House bill. It seems like we just opened Pandora's box. It's a one-way street, and I'm not real comfortable with it, because I know in the past there's been issues with transportation that clearly have an impact off-site, but under this new House bill, it sounds like we can't even go there. To say, well, you haven't mitigated your impacts. And again, that sounds like it gets into an opinion. I guess, Mr. Williams, I know I've had some discussion with the chairman and Mr. Williams, but it just seems like we're getting stripped down here and exposed, and I'm real uncomfortable with doing this without doing something else that I haven't gotten a legal opinion whether we can do it or not, and yet I know another locality did it, and I'm bad half tempted to step out on a temporary basis and make a recommendation that we do a moratorium on any residential rezonings until this thing, otherwise it just seems like we're open to whatever comes at us and we can't defend ourselves. And yet, I don't have a legal opinion that says that a moratorium is not going to get us in trouble either. So I'm just really troubled by where we are with this thing. And it's like we do this, it's a one-way street, and I don't like it. I don't feel comfortable with it. So is there anything else we can do to protect ourselves in the short term?
Mr. Chairman.
And I'm sorry for this, Mr. Williams.
No, that's okay. The only thing practical that can be done is to basically try to do a case-by-case analysis, run numbers independently of a model for a particular project, look at things like school capacity numbers, look at things, the legislation covers schools, transportation, public safety, and parks. Schools are probably a little easier to figure because you have those hard attendance numbers and capacity numbers. Public safety, to some extent, there's some room to possibly run numbers there. Optimal number of calls for a first due area and how many calls the station is running. For example, obviously, the county has had discussions about adding, at some point in the future, a couple of new stations, and whether or not, obviously, particular development that might be proposed impacts those capacities. Parks, the metrics are a little harder to measure usage, but there's probably some ways to do it. I don't know what they are. It's not really truly a legal issue. And transportation, historically, planning staff has in significant part relied upon VDOT's scoping. There's probably still some vitality to that, but the issue there is we're relying on another agency, albeit a state agency, to make a judgment about what is specifically attributable. Transportation's a tough one, but at least there is some credible engineering, theoretical highway engineering analysis, transportation engineering analysis that would go behind those determinations. So those are some ideas, but the fundamental problem we have right now is the current model doesn't do that.
Comments, discussion? Yes, sir.
What are we seeking to do here today? Are we seeking to pass a motion
The
to?
recommendation is that we suspend use of the model in
In forms of
evaluating
motion, and-
rezoning applications. Is that
I
correct?
assume that's the case. The other thing I want to mention, it is unfortunate, because I think the model has served the county reasonably well, especially in recent years. We've each year taken a good hard look at whether the underlying principles behind the model are functioning well. There's been good discussion between at the Development Impact Model Oversight Committee, between the development community, the schools, and the county, the members of the board sitting on that committee. And in fact, it was about a year or two ago, we had a presentation looking at rather in depth at the fundamentals of the model. It's just unfortunate that we're not able to use this tool.
Well, and the other step we have taken already, you'll remember, is that it's one of our legislative initiatives. We're asking the legislature to reevaluate the action they took and to further define it and try to make it into a better product if they're going to dump it on us.
Yeah.
Then they also threw out 40-plus years of case law, which defined the action they took back when they first tried properties. So it's a tough spot.
We certainly don't want to be there again. I look at many of the projects that we've had in recent years, and they've struck a good balance between what the community and development community, what is good for everybody, if you will, as we move forward from a variety of land uses and transportation improvements, many of which are under development today. So we've had a good experience in the past. I'm sure we'll get there again in the future. It's just going to, we have to be careful to get there.
Well, I'm going to have to comment because I think that we've always worked really hard and done a really good job at striking that balance and working with applicants and working with the development community. Apparently, it wasn't always that good in other parts of the Commonwealth. So, just Chuck DeHaven's opinion.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ruddy, you're asking for a suspension of what we currently do, correct? Your proposal
Use
is,
of the model.
so you're it's basically saying the current model that we're using, we're going to suspend, correct?
That,
And in place of it, there's going to be nothing other than what the current state law says. Is that correct?
If I could just add to that, what we have done in preparation is some minor changes to the rezoning application, which hopefully, again, gives the applicant some guidance as to recognize that the development impact model should no longer be used. We want to work with you to find out what is specifically attributable and work out ways to address those impacts. So we have prepared some modifications to the rezoning application to hopefully look at each request on an individual basis.
I'm just trying to go through a thought process here. If we as a board voted no, then are you back to the current impact model, or has that been suspended because of state law?
No, it hasn't been suspended because of the state law. That is a local tool that we have developed over time to help us evaluate rezoning requests.
So we can either A, keep what we currently have, is that correct?
We could do, that puts us in jeopardy potentially with rezoning applicants that come on in who choose to use those numbers.
So it would come in and say, fine, you, the county, have an obligation because of the change? I'm trying to get a good feel on what a yes vote is and what a no vote is, and I might end up supporting Mr. Fisher's comments here, and that's why I'm just trying to walk through for my education here. If you can elaborate on what happens if you say yes, what happens if you say no?
What happens if you suspend the use of it, then each individual rezoning applicant that comes on a case-by-case basis will have to demonstrate how they are addressing the specifically attributable impacts of their project on a case-by-case basis. If we keep it in there, then it places an additional cloud or evaluation or expectation that the county may be looking for in a residential rezoning request. And the fact that that expectation is out there could be deemed unreasonable. And that unreasonable proffer is what is specifically prohibited in the new state code requirement.
So therefore, to get rid of the unreasonable, quote-unquote, proffer, you'd have to take the actions you're taking.
That's what we believe is a appropriate first step.
And then if you take that action, then, as Mr. Fisher has said, you're really open to anything that a new applicant wants. I mean, there's no restraints, i.e. impact on roads, et cetera. Is that pretty much correct?
But I do believe the applicant would have to demonstrate what is specifically attributable, they believe is specifically attributable to their project. And then ultimately, the Board of Supervisors would have to decide if they agree that their application is appropriate and they have met the impacts associated with their request. So
That impact historically has been within a short radius of the development, i.e. a half mile, a mile, et cetera, as opposed to the broader impact of the county as a whole. Is that accurate?
that is accurate and correct to point out that historically the test has been there's a rational nexus. There's a rough proportionality between the impact and the proffer. Again, that's a rough proportionality. The new language says it's specifically attributable, and that has some basis in law that Mr. Williams can get into a little bit more than I possibly can, but that's a big difference between the code that was in place prior to July 1st.
And so if Mr. Ruddy, I wanted to go and say that I want to have some more time to examine this whole thing, are we then in a situation where you'd have to suspend development until we can address these issues?
No, we're not in a position to do that. If we get a rezoning request in, the state code has procedural requirements that we certainly have to meet, due process. And so the addition of this particular item to the state code does not kick out everything else that we have to deal with
So then you're
regards to
back on a
rezonings.
case-by-case basis with...
And we'll continue to work on the county side to try and develop those tools to better evaluate individual requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I will align myself with Mr. Fisher's comments.
Supervisor Lofton.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Reddy, I think, would it not be more appropriate, instead of saying that the developer would have to prove that they're mitigating any impacts, that it'd be more appropriate to say the county has to prove they are not mitigating their impacts? Because it sounds like that's what this does, actually. It puts the burden of proof on us that they are not. It looks like it puts most of the cards in their hands and not ours. It severely limits or puts us under the microscope of trying to express or prove that they are not meeting the impacts of their development. So that's how I see it.
I wouldn't disagree with you.
Supervisor Fisher.
Let me be clear with what I said earlier, because I don't think I was. I don't think we have any choice but to approve what you're bringing to us based on legal advice, because if we don't, we are legally wide open to exposure. So I think we have to approve the discontinuance of this impact development model. And any rezonings that come in the meantime, as Mr. Williams said, are going to be on a case-by-case issue. They're going to be complicated, and they're going to be, in my opinion, convoluted and difficult. But I think we've got to approve the discontinuance of this based on legal advice, or we leave ourselves wide open.
And as a staff, we will try and provide you with as much assistance as we can when you do get those residential rezonings in front of you.
I just think it's important that residents of the county understand that boards in the past, and I feel this board, have worked very hard to make sure to manage the growth of the county. And our hands are being tied by what we're seeing now. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be a lot of court decisions. We'll still try to do the best that we possibly can, but it has changed the playing field, and we'll continue to do so unless there's a reversal from the state.
Mr. Chairman.
I think folks need to understand that because it's not something we can control. I agree with Mr. Fisher. We have to move forward. That's the only thing we can do at this point.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Williams.
Sir.
If the board did not approve, then does that action open the county to liability?
If the board does not,
If the board turned down Mr. Ruddy's proposal here, does that open the county to liability?
each one itself is a case-by-case basis, but the current model suggests numbers that are beyond specifically attributable. The legislation limits proffers to what are specifically attributable.
And if the board approves what Mr. Ruddy is proposing, does that give the county a stronger legal position on rezoning issues?
The significance to the county, the board approving the proposal is that nobody would be able to say that the county suggested specific, or I shouldn't use that particular word, particular numbers, when those particular numbers are not founded in impacts that are specifically attributable.
Which would then open the county to a potential lawsuit if that had occurred?
Sure.
The specifically attributables.
I'm just trying to, thank you.
It's going to happen anyway.
Further discussion?
Do you want a motion on this, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, may I
Nice,
just,
but let's let Supervisor Slaughter speak.
I just have one comment. I think out of our joint work session with the board and planning, there were several ideas thrown out for consideration. And one of the ideas was that we suspend residential or put a moratorium on development, on building and so forth, until we have a more clear path and guidelines. And I'm wondering if we couldn't ask our county attorney if that is something that we could do without putting ourselves in another situation that we're going to have another legal issue because we're being, what constitutes reasonable. So
I like that.
Supervisor Hess?
If you're prepared for a motion, I'd like to move that the board approve immediate discontinuance of use of the development impact model.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Supervisor Dunn?
Aye, reluctantly,
Oh.
aye.
Not voting yet. I thought you wanted to comment some more.
Okay, my comments, I concur with Supervisor Slaughter's comments. I mean, I think this is something that, in a work session, we can walk through. I'm just not comfortable by the place where we are. You've done a good job, Mr. Ruddy. I'm just uncomfortable on being forced into a situation that I think is untenable to the county. I think it's untenable to the county taxpayers. And so I want to get the items that best protect the county legally from lawsuits, et cetera. That's why I'm in comments to Mr. Williams.
Comments should be limited to the motion.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion? Supervisor Lofton?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Supervisor Slaughter's comments, and that you could chance that and say we're not going to do any more rezoning, but in obviously the legislation that was passed, they had great lobbyists, and maybe we need to catch up a little bit, so there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for us, I don't think.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Board liaison reports, are there any? All right. Citizen comments. This is the opportunity for audience and the citizens to comment on any issue that they might like to bring before the board. Is there anyone who would like to comment on any issue? Anyone? All right, we'll close the public comment portion. Board of Supervisors comments.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Supervisor Dunn.
I just want to announce that I will be holding a town hall meeting on Tuesday, October 11th at 7 p.m. at Greenwood Mill. So for people in Redbud or elsewhere in the county that want to come and have input into county decisions on planning, parks, transportation, et cetera, love to have you come. And for those in Redbud specifically, we do have a park there, and so those homeowners that are adjacent to that park may want to come to determine what happens with that park. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Slaughter.
I'm not sure if we, as a board, need to perhaps charge our county attorney with further looking into whether we could put a moratorium on the development and if this is the place to do it.
I had actually previously asked him to put that on his list of things to do when he could get to them.
Thank you, sir.
We have filled his list pretty full. Supervisor Fisher.
Being on the Public Safety Committee, I'd just like to take an opportunity to ask the citizens and the folks of our county with the weather conditions that are coming, if you see water in a roadway or over a low water bridge, please don't cross it and get yourself in trouble and put our safety, our sheriff's deputies, and our fire and rescue people at risk. Please don't drive through standing water.
Other board comments, anyone? Anyone? Supervisor Fisher.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn is our second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. We're adjourned. We thank everyone for their time and their participation.